Hi everyone, and welcome back to my channel. In this episode, I'm going to be talking about Orbital by Samantha Harvey. This book came out in 2023 and it did win the Booker Prize. I read it with my book club and I really enjoyed it. It's a pretty short novel, and it's kind of a combination of sci-fi, speculative or literary fiction, as well as philosophical contemplation, I would say. Big warning from me is if you need a book that has a lot of plot and a lot of action, this is not it, and that's why one of my book club members hated this book. But for me, I really love a book that can create a sense of wonder, that can really make you ponder what it is to be human, and this book does exactly that in such a succinct way. The premise of the book is that we are following 6 astronauts and cosmonauts as they orbit over 24 hours on an orbiting space station. So the book is divided up into these cycles of that orbit. But for me, the great thing about this book is less what each of these characters is doing and more what they're thinking about and kind of the overall philosophical questions of this novel. I do think there is enough in the book to keep you going, but it's more small vignettes or reflections or descriptions of personal particulars or details about the astronauts. And there isn't really much of like this happens or that happens. There's no like problem they have to solve. They don't have to save humanity. It's definitely a much more reflective piece of work. So for me, like I love analyzing literature and I've always found my philosophy classes and English classes really fun. So I wanted to maybe share what I thought were 2 of the most interesting themes to me personally. And I also think they're kind of the most obvious themes, but there's a lot you could dissect in this book. I think Samantha Harvey is saying things about society, about governments, about nature, but overall, I feel that her project is to really make us feel, one, a sense of perspective between our life on Earth and being taken out of that by being on an orbiting space station, and 2, a sense of like our shared humanity and what does it mean to be the human race. The first theme I want to talk about, which is perspective, comes up repeatedly and in a very overt way throughout the book. Right off the bat, I feel like the fact that these astronauts and cosmonauts are able to leave Earth is kind of an undergirding principle of the entire piece of fiction. Samantha Harvey is constantly talking about how now that they've left Earth, there are so many different like perceptions or conceptions of the role of the Earth. And the most obvious one is like Mother Earth and Earth as a source of creation and as kind of a maternal place. But one of the more interesting characterizations of Earth that comes up in this novel is Earth as heaven. There's this really interesting quote where one of the astronauts is thinking about how from space, Earth looks so beautiful and colorful and flowy that if you saw it, you would think, oh, that's heaven. And then he thinks, but isn't that interesting? Because when we're on Earth, we always think of heaven as being up in the sky and up in space. So I love that kind of playful questioning of, are we appreciating how paradise-like Earth actually is as we're living on Earth, and does it take leaving Earth in order to see that or to appreciate it? Another key idea around this theme of perspective is, Earth being at the center of the universe, and from afar looking down on Earth, it just seems we have so many like feelings that we project onto it. It's hard to imagine that it wasn't created by a God, that we aren't the center of the universe. But then obviously scientific research disproves that, and we know that it was random and it was evolution and that we're not the center of anything and everything is just this enormous nothingness. One quote that I like that kind of describes how random life on Earth is this quote: "We exist now in a fleeting bloom of life and knowing, one finger snap of frantic being, and this is it. This summary burst of life is more bomb than bud. These fecund times are moving fast." I love the writing. It is quite poetic and philosophical, but because the book is so short and because I'm so interested in the themes, I didn't find it difficult or challenging to read. There's another quote that kind of supports this thesis, which says, "And in time we come to see that not only are we on the sidelines of the universe, but that it's a universe of sidelines, that there is no center, just a giddy mass of waltzing things, and that perhaps the entirety of our understanding consists of an elaborate and ever-evolving knowledge of our own extraneousness, a bashing away of mankind's ego by the instruments of scientific inquiry until it is, that ego, a shattered edifice that lets light through." One thing that really just was right up my alley, and something that, I mean, anyone who knows me in college would know that I love, is Samantha Harvey's use of images. And I highly recommend, if you read this book, looking up the images that she mentions. To me, there are three really important images. The first is a painting by Velázquez called Las Meninas, which I have seen in person as a kid because my family liked to go to Europe. And then the second is called the Collins photograph. Basically, Michael Collins, and I didn't know this, so I'm ignorant, but Michael Collins was the third astronaut on the Apollo 11 mission, and he stayed in the command module when Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong actually went down to the moon's surface. So Michael Collins' space photo is so interesting. I mean, maybe you guys already know about this, but I didn't, and I looked it up because it was mentioned in the book. Collins took a photo of the lunar module that Aldrin and Armstrong were in, and then behind that was the moon, and behind that was the Earth. And so from that perspective, or from that point of view, Collins is the only person in the world not in this image, because everyone on Earth is on Earth, and then the two astronauts are in the lunar module, and he's in the command center taking the photo. So that blew my mind. I thought that was so interesting, and of course I would put that in the book for this overall theme that Harvey is exploring. The third important image is fictional. One of the Japanese astronauts, her name is Chie, she has a memento that's very sentimental. It's a picture that her mom took on the day of the lunar landing, and she has this kind of reflection about whether in that photo depicting her mom, if her mom was trying to tell her to shoot for the moon and be ambitious, or trying to warn her about how difficult that path would be, especially as a woman. So I just love that Harvey is acknowledging and using the power of images, especially images both in the personal context of how important a photograph can be to an individual, as well as in a societal sense. You know, so many people followed the moon landing, would know this Michael Collins photo, even though I didn't. And Las Meninas is a super famous painting, which I also am so interested in. But Las Meninas is a painting from 1656. It's in the Museo del Prado. So I guess I would have seen it when we were kids and we went to Spain in the summer. My parents always took us to art museums, which I'm grateful for because I love art. But anyway, the cool thing about that painting is the king and queen are in the painting, but they're not in the foreground. They're not the main subject. There's also ladies in waiting. Velázquez himself is in the portrait, and this was revolutionary, I guess, at the time, because it was playing with the idea of where the perspective lies, who is important in this painting. And in Orbital, one of the astronauts is just reflecting on learning about this painting as a kid. And one of the key questions from that lesson was asking of this painting, Las Meninas, what is the real subject of this painting? And that just ties in perfectly with humans being the subject of our own story and Earth being the center of the universe, when really, scientifically, it's random and insignificant. But we give it so much meaning, and I feel like Samantha wants us to think about that as a concept in the same way that Velázquez was evoking those questions with his painting. So yeah, I just feel like throughout the book, all of these thoughts around the relationship with Earth, and also the divulgence of the personal details of each of the astronauts, they often think about their life on Earth or their relationships, just that comparison and contrast of these very particular personal details with the abstraction, this brutal abstraction of being a human in space, and almost, if you want to take it one step further, representing humankind, because by virtue of leaving Earth, they kind of become this abstract representation of humankind. I just think that's so interesting, and that is my musing on that is directly what she's trying to get out of us in this book. So that kind of leads me to the second theme that I want to talk about, which is shared humanity and what it means to be a human species. And one way that she kind of touches on this is this concept of time. And even the very first sentence of the book, or the opening book, talks about, or I'll just read it. This is the opening sentence. Rotating about the Earth in their spacecraft, they are so together and so alone that even their thoughts, their internal mythologies at times convene. Sometimes they dream the same dreams, of fractals and blue spheres and familiar faces engulfed in dark, and of the bright, energetic black of space that slams their senses. Raw space is a panther, feral and primal. They dream it stalking through their quarters. One of the key ideas of being in space and being in the space station is the importance of trying to keep a regular time. And I just love that idea of, do we need time to have like organized society? Like obviously we do for capitalism and stuff, but time is kind of like a way to indicate that we are the same species, and just how important it is for the astronauts and cosmonauts to have an internal sense of time. Like they're meant to always check in, they're meant to like have these increments and all these like safeguards and measures with ground control so they kind of don't get untethered. They almost imply that like without a strict sense of time, you could like go mad, which I'm sure is true. And kind of reminds me of another book we read, She Who Has Never Known Men, or Mistress of Despair by Jacqueline. And in that, that is dystopian and sci-fi, and these women are stuck on this planet with no like modern devices. So one of the innovative things that the main character does is like invent her own sense of time by counting her heartbeat. And so to me, it makes me think like, oh, is time an aspect of our shared humanity? I don't think that's like the main theme that Samantha is trying to present, but it's like an offshoot of this broader question of what makes us a shared species, what makes us like humanity in the abstract sense of that word. And a lot of it, I think, has to do with the perspective, and like being taken away from Earth makes them feel more connected. But then the very detailed and specific ways she describes all of the astronauts, including like their dreams, their memories, their feelings, they're definitely very different. You know, obviously they're all scientists and they're all able to go to space, but they're from different countries, they're different genders, they have different relationship statuses. So I just think it's so interesting that we can all be so different, but then that question of, but what makes us the same? Is it only biological? Is it the same pitfalls of societies across different countries? Like, what is it that makes us have a shared humanity? That is a question I feel like this book also is trying to get you to think about and to ask yourself. Yeah, so I think you can tell from my little off-the-cuff, unplanned literary analysis that this book will definitely give you a lot of food for thought, but you can't go into it expecting a plot or expecting a problem that needs to be solved, or even any minor dramas among the characters. I think you have to go into it just open to like a sense of wonderment, a sense of awe, and just be really open to thinking about these bigger questions. I feel like there's so much meat in here, even though it's a slim novel, for you to think about. And the writing is really up my alley. Like, it's not pretentious, but it is quite punchy and like takes risks. I love this description that Samantha Harvey has where she's describing Earth, the first view of Earth from the space station. There's the first dumbfounding view of Earth, a hunk of tourmaline, no, a cantaloupe, an eye, lilac orange, almond mauve, white magenta, bruised, textured, shellacked splendor. Yeah, it's not too edgy for me. It's not too, like, I love that kind of stuff, and I think the writing matches the weight of the project. Like, Samantha Harvey is trying to make us question humanity, make us question our perspective and everything that tethers us to this earth, and so I think it's only fair and only just that the words that she uses and her literary style is similarly lofty and punchy. So I really do like that writing style. I wouldn't just sit down and like whip through it. I think it's nice to like save yourself some chapters and then like maybe read a chapter, then go on a walk, or like read a chapter, then take a long shower or take a bath, and just give yourself some time to like almost wallow in these philosophical ideas. I think there's a lot there. even better if you have a book club that's maybe a little bit more open-minded about contemplating the meaning of life, because I do think it'd be fun to discuss with other people as well. I was the host for this book club, so I did make a list of book club questions, which I'm going to share in the info box. And I feel like the questions also really kind of reflect the themes that I thought were interesting and that I wanted to talk about. So if you're interested in that, check it out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.